Beach County, and we are ready, almost ready. I like it like this. It's one vote here, you know. We're almost ready. We are about to be ready to start the agenda for the Palm Beach County Board of County Commission's meeting of July 9th, 2024. And if we could have Madam Clerk call the roll.
Commissioner Barnett. Commissioner Baxter? Commissioner Bernard?
Here.
Vice Mayor Marino? Mayor Sachs?
Here.
Commissioner Woodward?
Here.
Commissioner Weiss?
Here.
Thank you.
For the record, Vice Mayor Marino said she's coming in, but she's coming in a little bit late. Okay, so if Commissioner Woodward, if you could lead us in the prayer and the invocation, and the pledge, that would be very good. Thank you.
Dear God, we seek your help with our affairs today. Bless this meeting with your divine intelligence and help us to make the best use of our own. We are of diverse opinion here, yet we wish to reach agreement satisfactory for all. Please share your wisdom with us to help us do right by all concerned. Thank you for your heavenly blessing. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let the record reflect that Commissioner Baxter has arrived. Okay. We are ready to start today, ladies and gentlemen. We have a workshop, but first we're going to have an agenda approval, additions, deletions, or substitutions of the agenda. Are there any?
Mayor, members of the board, there are no additions, deletions, or substitutions today.
Very good. If I could have a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Very good. I have a second by Commissioner Woodward. All those for, anybody opposed? See that it passes unanimously, 6-0. Okay, we're going on to the consent agenda. The clerk and comptroller, if we could have a receive and file at this time.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve item 3A1 and 2.
Very good. And I have a second by Commissioner Baxter. All those for. Anybody opposed? See that it passes unanimously, 6-0. And now we're going on to, was that actually, that was the entire consent agenda?
No, we need one more.
So we have one more? Go right ahead.
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and let me withdraw that motion. I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Now, before you, or as you already made the motion, does anybody wish to pull anything from the consent agenda? Seeing no one. So if I could have a second to Commissioner Weiss's first, and I see it from Commissioner Baxter. All those for, anybody opposed, see that it passes unanimously, 6-0. And now we're on to the regular agenda, 4A1. And this is with regard to PalmTran. Let's see here.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Commissioners, Administrator Baker. Before you is a regular item on WPB Go, the West Palm Beach Mobility Coalition. And this is a really kind of unique partnership with PalmTran. And what we are doing with this is a grant that's coming down from DOT for $20,000 that we're working through WPB Go and a couple of other partners locally in South Florida that have worked on securing funds for commuters for bus passes. And we'll be working with WPB Go specifically in the West Palm Beach area with both businesses, governments, not-for-profits to set up specific accounts through PalmTran with these dollars that they are going to offer to select businesses, governments, not-for-profits within the West Palm Beach area to be eligible for use for PalmTran buses. And the way that it'll work is those businesses will get Paradise passes through our technology, and we'll be able to monitor sort of the flow of some of those riders that are getting on and off of those buses. And we've got a lot of excited entities, I think, that are out there I also wanted to recognize Mr. Jonathan Hopkins, who's with us today with WPB Go. I know that he has a comment card in as well, and wanted to share some information with the board as well. But we're excited about this and would appreciate your support and happy to answer any questions you might have.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Von Laren. Does anybody have any questions of staff at this time? And Commissioner Weiss, do you have that card?
I do.
Okay. Why don't we go ahead and hear what the gentleman has to say?
Jonathan Hopkins.
Go right ahead, Mr. Hopkins. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Mayor and Commissioners. So good to see everybody here today. So this is pretty exciting because this is an opportunity to bring some best practices to Palm Beach County about growing transit ridership that involve collaboration between employers and transit agencies to help reduce congestion. And who wants to reduce congestion?
No, everybody.
Everybody's a yes on that. So we've been successful in working with city and county partners and with South Florida Commuter Services, which is an FDOT function that covers 7 counties, to bring FDOT money here to Palm Beach County to test, if transit passes are provided by employers, what does that do to parking demand and roadway congestion? We already know through intercept surveys that Palm Tran ridership accounts for about 9% of people getting to downtown West Palm Beach. And there's data out there that shows just 5% increase in traffic can take a road from free-flowing to congested. So Palm Tran already helps keep some of our roads moving by making people take up less space. We're just going to try and test, okay, how much more can we accomplish by employers and the agency working together. So we hope that the commission approves this contract item that allows us to purchase passes at the standard public rate, $2 per ride, $70 a month. And we can come back with understanding how this helps move more people in Palm Beach County as we grow. Thank you, everybody.
Very good. Thank you. Commissioner Weiss, your light is on. Did you want to have a question?
Yeah, I had a question
Hopkins, sir, just
for
one
Mr.
second.
Hopkins. My question is, you did mention you're going to have governments potentially participating. Would that include the county and county employees being able to be participants?
Yes, Commissioner Weiss. So we've already have identified some interested parties, haven't done final selection. If we're shooting to do about 25 employers, give or take a few, depending on the size of what those employers are. We've had a number of departments of the county interested in participating. We will have, county employees participating in this. We'll have city employees participating in it. Our goal is to cover a broad cross-section of sectors, so we understand, these tools might be really great for restaurant workers and 9-to-5 workers, but they might not work well in some other sector. So we really want to, as any good experiment would do, to see that cross-section.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So this basically is a trial. It's a pilot program.
Yes, ma'am. This is a pilot.
And will you have a report back after the pilot program is finished?
We will, and one of the exciting things about this is the data and technology that we have with Palm Tran. I think that's one of the reasons why they're particularly excited about partnering with us, is that we can produce that data, and we're looking forward to sharing it with the board so that you all are aware of, the
and
success.
if things go well, Mr. Bodlaren, on this, Mr. Hopkins, you'll report back to the county, and you'll also report back to FDOT.
Correct.
And we could possibly get a little more funding to continue the program on a continuous basis, on a solid basis.
Mayor, that is a conversation that we've had with Mr. Hopkins, and we've talked about, if we're successful on this, are there other opportunities for more grant dollars? We believe that there are. So that's why we're going to kind of go full speed ahead on this to make the best case that we can, but we think that there will be opportunities if this is a success.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Hopkins.
Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Von Laren.
Thank you.
Okay, so,
I'll move approval of item 4A1.
very good idea. And we have a second by Commissioner Barnett. All those for, anybody opposed? See that it passes unanimously, 6-0. Thank you. Thank you for that work. Okay. I believe we're ready to enter into our workshop. And we're going to proceed at this time, Madam Clerk. And the first item on the workshop is with regard to county and municipal housing, which is the topic du jour, it seems, in the country. So I'd like to proceed with you. And please, if as staff goes along, if somebody has an important question immediately, be sure you put your light on. If not, we'll wait to the end and we'll ask questions of everybody. But if there's an issue that comes up, we'll certainly be love to interrupt you. Okay, go right ahead.
Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. Tammy Fields, Assistant County Administrator. At the table this morning is Jonathan Brown and Sherry Howard from Housing and Economic Development, Ms. Carol Gilbert-Jones from the Palm Beach County Housing Authority, and our County Attorney Representative, Howard Falcon. This morning, we're here pursuant to the board direction to dive a little bit deeper into how the Public Housing Authority vouchers work in assisting and providing affordable housing in our community. Staff is going to start with a very brief presentation on how we work with the housing authorities. Then we're going to turn the bulk of the presentation over to Ms. Gilbert-Jones for a presentation on behalf of all of the housing authorities. And I want to thank Ms. Gilbert-Jones as well as all of the housing authority representatives who are here today for their work in making this workshop possible. At the conclusion of her presentation, we'll turn it over to Meg Gallagher from the Veterans Administration to go over and explain a little bit more about the VASH vouchers that are specific for our veterans. And a copy of her presentation has been provided to the board at the dais. So at this point, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Brown to proceed.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mayor, Commissioners, Administrator Baker. So as Tammy mentioned, today we have with us our housing authority partners throughout the county. Just some information with regards to the housing authorities and the statute that establishes the housing authorities and kind of how their boards are established. If you are part of the county's housing authority, the governor selects the board members that are part of that housing authority. And if you are a municipal housing authority, then the recommendation of the board comes from the city mayor that the housing authority is located in. And then ultimately that city commission will ultimately make a decision on who serves on the board. Each of the housing authorities have their own boundary areas that they work in, and obviously housing authorities, if they so choose, could work together on projects as well. Just a little bit about the housing authorities that we are working with today, that's here today, and the boundary areas. Again, housing authorities can work with other housing authorities and, you know, at times go beyond what you see as their typical boundaries if they so choose. As part of the housing authorities, just a quick note, there is one housing authority, which is the Belgrade Housing Authority, that's funded through USDA. The other housing authorities are funded through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. And although the county doesn't have its own housing authority that it governs, we do want to show, at least over the last 10 years, that the county has been working with our housing authorities. Over $47 million provided that has created over 2,100 units throughout the county. And I'm going to have Sherry share a little bit about who's here representing each housing authority before Carol starts.
Good morning, Mayor and Board and County Administrator. So today with us we have our 7 housing authorities, 6 are municipal and 1 is county. We have from Belglade, Ramona and Greg Heisen. From Delray Beach Housing Authority, Shirley Arazo. From Riviera Beach, John Hurt. Inger Harvey and Satyam Polanini from Pahokee. Linda Odom from West Palm Beach. Ashley Wibby from Boca Raton, and I'll introduce Carol Gilbert-Jones, who's going to give us the presentation on the housing authorities. Go ahead, Carol.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I believe they shared with you the presentation that we collectively put together, all the housing authorities. I would like to say that we are honored to be here to present this information and to share about the, I think, hard work that we all do serving some of the most vulnerable families in the Palm Beach County area. Oh, closer. Okay. As Sherry mentioned, we have all of the housing authorities here represented. We talk about how we were formed by Florida state regulations. Oh, I'm sorry, am I supposed to be clicking that?
Okay. Here we go.
All right. So As they mentioned already, there are the housing authorities that are represented here today. I would say we are a close-knit group that work together. We were excited to come together and prepare this and talk about our collective work. But we all have information. I think you were provided a matrix that gave you our individual information on our commissioners, our annual budgets, our housing units, the voucher programs and our wait lists, and our funding sources.
Ms. Gilbert-Jones, I'm going to interrupt. And since this is a workshop, I would encourage anybody to speak up if you have a question or comment. My question is this. We have so many housing authorities that were established, of course, the county by the governor and the municipalities by the mayor. Why don't we have more? And would it be helpful if other cities, municipalities had a housing authority themselves?
Well, there are more than 3,300 housing authorities across the country.
No, I'm talking Palm Beach.
I understand.
So I see West Palm, Delray, Riviera, Boca, Pahokee, and Belle Glade.
Yes.
But how about, let's say, any of the other cities, such as, any city here that.
Well, we serve vouchers across all of those cities. Like I have vouchers in Boynton Beach, West
Okay,
Palm
now I'm
Beach.
not asking about the vouchers.
Okay.
I'm asking, is there a reason why some cities don't have a public housing authority?
Usually they were established by statute and they were not established for those cities.
Can they establish them themselves? I guess let me look at Mr. Falcone. Sir, can a city any of the cities here, we have.
I believe that to be the case, yeah.
municipalities.
Yes, I believe that to be the case.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Yes, I believe that to be the case, that they can.
They don't have to.
No, that they have the ability to.
Okay, so their municipal ordinance does not provide for them to establish a housing authority.
I can't address that because I haven't looked at the individual cities and their charters, constitutions, whatever, to say what they say and don't say, but they have the ability to do it if they elect to, I believe.
So it's under their authority that they don't want to have, that they don't need to have one if they don't want one.
It is their choice, yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you, sir. Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead, Ms. Gilbert.
Okay. And so you have the housing authorities represented here. It talks about our authority. We are governed by the Florida state statute as was collected. We are independent entities. We are not part of a municipal, county, or state government. We are typically defined as quasi-governmental. We engage that independence is based on the Federal Housing Act of 1937, which makes us separate. We can buy, sell, own, rent, develop, demolish, mortgage, and rehabilitate properties. So we have a broad authority to provide housing throughout our jurisdictions. We engage in new development partnerships with private developers, with other housing authorities, with other entities, and we promote self-sufficiency, home ownership, and education. Now, when it talks about self-sufficiency, many of us have family self-sufficiency programs. Our family self-sufficiency program is one in which, as residents come in, their baseline rent is established. Once that baseline rent is established, once they exceed that baseline, the difference in the rent goes into an escrow account. And they have goals that they've set, and those goals can be anywhere from 5, a maximum of 7 years. Once they reach those goals, they get that escrow money. And I can say that is some of the proudest moments for housing authority CEOs. When I first came to Palm Beach County, I awarded a resident more than $30,000 in an escrow check. This resident came in, she was zero income, she worked the program, and at the time that she left the program, she purchased a house in Port St. Lucie, and she no longer needed the program. And so that is what the Family Self-Sufficiency Program can do for residents of public housing and the Housing Choice Voucher Program. We also have our Resident Opportunity for Self-Sufficiency Program. That's where we can provide case management to public housing residents to help them determine what does self-sufficiency look like for that family, because we know it's not the same for every family. So we work with families, disabled families, senior families, to say, what does self-sufficiency look like for your family? We have our Jobs Plus program. Our Jobs Plus program is one where we do education, leadership for youth that are 16 to 24 who have been justice involved or low income, and we teach them a construction trade. So we have the West Palm Beach Housing Authority has a home ownership program, and there are opportunities for residents to use their voucher to purchase homes if a housing authority has established a home ownership program. And then we have our educational programs. We always offer opportunities for education and skill development. And so we work with partners throughout the county to provide education for our residents, to provide childcare, to provide basically to meet basic needs. We partner with agencies to do that. The partnerships include the Palm Beach County School District, other municipal and county governments, economic and healthy lifestyle programs. We partner with the Continuum of Care, with Career Source, Vita Nova, Dress for Success. We're constantly partnering to make sure that we are helping our families get the supportive services that they need. So when we talk about the housing programs, you have public housing units. These are hard units that are operated by housing authorities. And as I was stating, public housing comes in all sizes and types. It could be scattered single-family homes. It could be high-rises for seniors. There are approximately 970,000 families living in public housing across the country, and they're served by 3,300 housing authorities. So we have a lot of, here in this area, we have about 2,179 public housing units. And they're serving 6,537 individuals and households. So we also have the farm labor housing. There are 712 units of farm labor housing, which is the USDA program, and they're serving 3,060 persons within those housing units. We have the Housing Choice Voucher Program. This is HUD's most major program for providing rental assistance. There are 2.3 million families that are receiving Housing Choice Voucher assistance across the country. There are two types of Housing Choice Vouchers. There's the project-based voucher, which we'll talk about a little later, and there's the tenant-based voucher. And so we will talk about what is the difference in those two types of vouchers. But overall, the housing authorities are serving more than 30,537 people in Palm Beach County. Now, as we talk about the housing programs, all of our programs are designed to provide safe, decent, affordable housing to those in need. There's various initiatives that help us modernize and build and support homeownership, rental assistance, economic self-sufficiency, as I talked about. We have our public housing operating subsidy, which is how we fund our public housing program. We have the Public Housing Capital Fund program. On the last consent agenda, we were here talking about our annual plan and where we have our capital program. Every year, housing authorities are allocated a certain amount of money for their capital fund, and this is to make improvements to their public housing units. We have our Housing Choice Vouchers, which were formerly known as Section 8, which I talked about. We have public housing development that we do. We have mixed finance development, the home ownership, a former Hope 6 program where you were able to take a neighborhood and revitalize that neighborhood under the Hope 6 program, and a new program, the rental assistance, well, relatively new program, the rental assistance demonstration program, where you convert public housing to a Section 8 platform. Now, the funding sources, as I talked about, we have the operating subsidy, the capital fund. Under the Housing Choice Voucher Program, the bulk of the funding that we get for our Housing Choice Voucher Program goes toward the rental assistance. So the money that we get in, the bulk of it goes out the door to private landlords, private homeowners. But we also get some the administrative fee, and that's to pay for the salaries to administer the programs. We have our farm labor housing administrative fees. There are developer fees that we get in partnering with private developers. And then we have entrepreneurial fees and public funding sources that we have fees from. So when we talk about mixed finance housing, this is what we talk about, the 3 Ps, the public-private partnership, where we partner with public, private, and nonprofit funds to develop and operate affordable housing. And many of you are familiar with this because these are projects that come across your desk. These housing accommodates residents with various incomes, and they fit into the community. They're not usually identifiable from any other home ownership or housing opportunity. Under the Housing Choice Voucher Program, as I talked about, you have the home ownership program. Every housing authority that administers the Housing Choice Voucher Program has the option to establish a home ownership program. Under the home ownership program, it basically provides, it uses the voucher to go toward the mortgage for up to 15 years for a mortgage that's over 20 years, or 10 years for any mortgage that's shorter than 20 years. So this is an opportunity where they can use the voucher subsidy toward the purchase of a home. When we talk about the tenant-based vouchers, the tenant-based vouchers allow lower-income families to lease in privately owned rental housing. And this is a voucher that when the family moves, the voucher moves with them. So we have something under this program that's called portability, where the family can take that voucher and port it to any jurisdiction or state that has a housing choice voucher program. But this voucher is tied to the tenant, and the tenant's rent portion is 30% of their adjusted monthly income. And then the housing assistance payment pays the balance. So if you had a rent of $1,600 and the tenant's rent was $200, the voucher would pay the other $1,400 to make that unit affordable for the tenant. And usually we establish payment standards that say the maximum amount we will pay for a unit in a particular zip code. You also have the project-based vouchers, and project-based vouchers are the ones where we tie project-based vouchers into other housing communities. So they're a component of our regular housing choice voucher program. We use these vouchers, and when you project-base a voucher, the voucher assistance is tied to the unit. So if the family moves out of the unit, the assistance stays with the unit. Unlike the tenant-based voucher, if they move, the assistance goes with them. In these, we can use up to 20% of our authorized voucher units to project-based units in private communities. I think you've heard us talk about, oh, we have a community and we're placing 30 vouchers within that community. Well, that's where we would project-base and we would provide assistance for those 30 units. So we can do up to 20% of our authorized voucher authority and an additional 10% for special populations, and that would be like elderly or those in a low census tract. Certain units are excluded from our project cap, and some of those units would be the elderly, disabled, or the HUD-VASH vouchers that might be excluded. But housing authorities don't have an unlimited volume of vouchers that they can project base. We're capped at a maximum of 30% of our regular voucher authority. So this is not in addition to our regular voucher authority, it's within the voucher authority that we already been allotted. Now, we can use the PBV assistance for special projects to either rehabilitate projects or construct new units. As I stated, the assistance is attached to the unit for up to a minimum of 1 year, up to 20 years. So we're talking about a substantial investment of a 20-year guaranteed rental income when we project-based vouchers in these communities, because that's the maximum term. But most times, once we project-based vouchers in a community, we don't remove those vouchers from a community. We continue to support those vouchers in perpetuity unless the owner typically decides they don't want to have the project-based vouchers there. Projects are typically selected through a competitive process. However, they can be selected non-competitively if the PHA or the housing authority has ownership in that particular development. Here we have given you some examples of housing programs from the various housing authorities where county funding was used or instrumental in these projects. We have the off-farm labor housing here at the Belglade Housing Authority. As you can see, they had an $8 million grant from the USDA, but they also had a $2.5 million funding from Palm Beach County. And so this is how we utilize not just the federal funding that we have, but county and other sources to finance projects. You will look at Legacy at 45th Street. This is a project that is underway that was funded by the Florida Community Loan Fund. We received ARPA funds from the county of $5.5 million, and this is going to be serving families anywhere from 50 to 80% of area median income. And this is 48 units that is being built at the former office site of the Palm Beach County Housing Authority. You have the Autumn Ridge Apartments with the West Palm Beach Housing Authority. which is located on Congress Avenue in Westgate. This is 106 units of senior housing. And as you can see, this particular project received a 9% low-income housing tax credit award. They were awarded $2.7 million by the Palm Beach County for gap financing. And it's currently under construction and estimated to be completed in November of this year. The Island Cove Apartments by the Delray Beach Housing Authority is 60 multifamily units. The funding source was HUD, Project-Based Section 8 subsidy. They had a $1 million CRA award, and they received 4% tax credits and sale for this. They also received Palm Beach County Housing Finance Authority bond and low-income housing tax credit community that serves 30 to 70% of area median income. And when we talk about 30% of area median income, that's the extremely low income. That would be for a family of four, $32,150. So 30% is extremely low, and that's the bulk of who we serve for housing authorities. 50% would be a family of four, $53,550. So these are the families that we're serving in these communities. Next, you have McClure Village, which is the Pahokee Housing Authority. It's 71 units. The funding source was the Palm Beach County NSP grant of $1.9 million. A disaster recovery grant of $1.1 million, and again, serving families anywhere from 30 to 60% of the area median income. So some key statistics that we wanted to share with you on the economic impact that housing authorities make in this area. There are 30 public housing authority assisted developments in Palm Beach County. That's 2,891 residential units, more than 9,597 residents in PHA-owned buildings. This is housing authority buildings. There are 21,000 residents benefiting from the voucher program. And overall, again, we're serving 30,597 residents in this area, which is larger than some cities in Palm Beach County. We have 244 direct employees, but there's numerous indirect employees from the people that we contract with to do our capital improvements through grants. So we are employing and an employer throughout Palm Beach County. Our Housing Authority direct annual expenditures, collectively we receive over $4.1 million in housing operating subsidies. But the key thing I wanted you to focus on is the housing assistance payments that we make. Annually, we pour $138 million into the Palm Beach County economy. And that's through the rental subsidy that we're paying for the vouchers that we provide through our collective housing authorities. We have capital assistance payments. These are our, collectively, we receive $8 million and $8.3 million in capital funds. These are monies that we put into doing improvements in our communities, our public housing communities. This is money that goes to contractors to do the work, to do the major improvements. And so again, pouring this into the economy in Palm Beach County. Then we don't even count, we didn't even quantify the number of personal expenditures from our employee compensation, the indirect spending from the jobs, the materials, the supplies, the equipment, and the induced spending from retail purchases in restaurants from the people that we support with these dollars. So we have a large economic footprint in Palm Beach County. I also wanted to say, so what is our ask? Our ask is that as we come to you as housing authorities who support people and the most vulnerable people in the county, that funding is developed for affordable and workforce housing that is exclusive for housing authorities, but we don't want it to be exclusive that it would preclude us from competing in other pots of money. But we want to know that we are able to provide affordable housing for those most in need. We want you to make available county surplus land or existing vacant land to housing authorities for the development of affordable housing as a first option of disposition. We are serving those people where land is often a challenge of being able to build affordable housing because of the cost of the land. We would like a preference for developers that partner with housing authorities for development of affordable and workforce housing and funding opportunities. And we would ask that you include housing authorities in all affordable housing discussions and policy making. We are serving 30,000 families, and often we are the only voice that they have at the table. And so we want to ensure that as decisions are made for these families, we're at the table to give you information on the families we serve and the needs that we encounter every day. One additional ask, I know this came up in the last county commission, is the gap financing is critical to our deals. And being able to have enough gap financing to be able to keep the rents affordable is critical if we're going to address the housing shortage. We would ask that, you consider going up to 25% gap financing so that we can make sure that we can continue to work with private developers and partner with them to make the deals that are necessary to serve these families. So that is my presentation. I have all of the Housing Authority directors here that have my back. So if you have any questions.
Well, we do. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And before I call on my colleagues for questions and comments, I want to thank you all publicly for being at the June 24th First Mayor's Symposium. I have to say Palm Beach County was well represented. Ms. Baker, you have a lot to be proud of in your staff, and I was so proud as the city mayor to have you there. Many mayors didn't even know of these opportunities. That's why I asked you about the issue of these authorities in all the cities. Many mayors didn't not even know of the availability of what we can do, and I'm looking out in the audience as well. So we need to get the word out. We will have a follow-up in August. I'll let you know the date, and it'll be very, very important that every city mayor of all 39 municipalities know what you have done, what is available, and that it is something that we can reach out to the 2,186 homeless people we have from the count that you all did, that we have homeless individuals of that number here in our county today. So what you do is vitally important. So at that point, after I gave you that wonderful compliment, which you deserve, I'm going to open up the board to questions and comments by my colleagues, and I'm going to start with Commissioner Weiss.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much for the presentation. I want to go back to really understand these project-based vouchers, because when that came up a few months ago, it was the first we had heard about them. I really need you to explain exactly how they work.
Okay.
So if you could do that, that'd start there.
Okay. Usually housing authorities will either work in their own projects that they're developing or with private developers and agree to project base a certain number of vouchers within that particular development. So say you have a development of 150 units, the housing authority may commit to project base 25 of those units, which means we would provide the rental subsidy for those units. And a lot of times that subsidy is critical to making those deals work, to make the deals pencil out financially. So we would provide subsidy for a minimum of 1 year, but up to 20 years. And so they're able to write that subsidy into their pro forma. And so we will take our vouchers and we place them there, and they will permanently, that subsidy is permanently tied to that unit. So even if the family moves out, the subsidy remains in that community and tied to that unit.
So how many of them exist that are unused right now in the county? And can you speak on behalf of all the housing authorities? Do you have
How many are project-based? Mm-hmm. I know within my agency, we have projects-based 614 units total.
So that's what you currently
That's
have.
what we've currently project-based.
And how many are available?
Every housing authority can project-base up to 20% of their total voucher authority. So if I have a voucher authority of 3,500 units, the maximum that I can project-base is 30% of that voucher allocation. So every housing authority can do 20% and an additional 10% if they're serving special needs populations with those project-based vouchers.
If these project-based vouchers, so you get a total number annually from the federal government, is that correct?
HUD gives you an allocation, your voucher authority. So you have the authority for this number of vouchers. So say
For forever.
3,400 vouchers. Yes, forever, unless you get a new allocation. Sometimes HUD puts out notices every year and says, okay, we're opening up mainstream vouchers. You can apply for additional allocation. But usually you have to get that allocation from HUD. And most of the times that's competitive when you're applying. Sometimes they just award them.
So how do we have any because I'm clear you can only speak on behalf of your housing authority. Are there any project-based vouchers unused
Yes.
or available in your housing authority today?
Yes.
How many?
I think when we looked, well, there's been some changes recently. There's a new legislation that came back out that may open up some greater project-based voucher authority. But if we've only used 614, I think we have a total, Tammy? About 300.
So my question is, you have 300 project-based vouchers. We have lots of projects throughout the county getting built each and every day that are market rate. Why aren't we putting in 3 or 5 or 10 of those vouchers into every project?
Usually it has to go through a competitive process. So we have to put out an RFP and we have to solicit for people that want to have the project-based vouchers. But there's the possibility for any developer to apply to that solicitation to ask for an allocation of project-based vouchers. The only time it does not have to be done competitively, and that's because we want to make sure it's fair to all developers, is if the housing authority has an ownership stake in that project. They can project-base without a competitive process.
I guess what I don't understand is if you have 300 of these vouchers available, you could easily say, okay, I want to make 50 of them available this quarter. Bring me your RFPs.
Which housing authorities do.
But I guess my frustration is we've got these vouchers, we've got people building new units that could, but I don't see them being applied.
Well, housing authorities have an opportunity. Like I said, we partner with private developers. When they come to us, one of the things we want to make sure is that the projects serve the needs and the basic mission of the housing authority. So we're looking to make sure that they're in areas of opportunity in most cases, so that we're placing families in viable communities.
I mean, the projects that we see getting built are being, all these new projects are I would have to say, really well done. They're in great areas. I mean, because you see them, the buildings go up, they fill up. So I guess I don't understand.
The developers have to come to us and work with us.
But if we're trying to provide as much housing to as many people as we can, right, and it's a crisis, it seems like we should be proactive in trying to get these tools out. I'm questioning why we have the vouchers are money sitting there that could be invested in helping people. So I'm going to move on from that because I think
really every housing authority CEO here can say that they project-based vouchers in certain communities.
But if there's any that are left on the table right now, they need to be put to work. As fast as possible.
But they come out of our regular voucher authority. So they could be a tenant-based voucher or they can be a project-based voucher. So we issue them to families because the whole thing is the Housing Choice Voucher Program. The reason why we can't project-base our entire authority, because that limits the choice that families have.
Okay.
And so we have to follow HUD guidelines on how much of our voucher authority we can project-base.
So there's 300 vouchers that are not being used, that could be used either for a project-based voucher or they could be used.
We don't get a special allocation of just project-based
just
vouchers.
being given to families to go choose their own place. Why aren't they being used?
We're pulling people, we are issuing tenant-based vouchers. We have projects right now that are before, that we are considering where we project-based
If we have 300
vouchers.
vouchers that are in your authority, why aren't those out on the street now?
We are pulling from our wait list, and they are going to be out on the street. But
So,
we can't
Commissioner-
flood the market with 300 vouchers, knowing that, because there's not enough supply. We don't want to put them all out at one time, and everyone's competing for the same unit. So we strategically
Why would they
pull from our
compete for
wait
the
list.
same unit if they can go to any unit?
They can go to any unit. That doesn't mean that any unit is going to be acceptable, that the rent is going to be affordable. There is a maximum amount that we will pay for a unit. The rent has to be reasonable. The unit has to be affordable for the tenant. There's a whole eligibility determination that we have to do to make sure that we don't want to place someone in a unit that is uninhabitable.
I agree 100%, but but being on the street versus being in a unit that maybe is less desirable location, I don't understand it. So I'm going to move on because this is really frustrating to me.
Can I
Hold
add
on just
something?
one second. There's a lady at the podium. Is that okay if she speaks?
Yeah, I just wanted to.
Well, hold on just one second, miss. Hold on just a second. There's a lady at the podium, okay? Is it okay if she participates in the
This
workshop?
is Tammy McDonald, our
Okay,
Chief
ma'am,
Development
would you
Officer.
identify yourself, and I'll get right back to you, Tim. Go right ahead.
I'm Tammy McDonald. I'm the Chief Development Officer at the Palm Beach County Housing Authority. I work with Carol. I just wanted to, I think that there may be a few things that just need to be cleared up, and that is the 300 vouchers or approximate 300 vouchers that Carol refers to. It's not a new allocation. We don't get new allocations every year. So that's a finite number. So that's the first thing. The second thing is there are applications that are that came before the county commission that have vouchers, that have project-based vouchers in them. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say what they are, but
No.
but you've got Waterview. The Waterview apartments at Magonia Park have 56 housing project-based vouchers on them, and that will allow those units to be affordable, and they will be for people, reserved for people at the 30% of the area median income, so they will be reserved for the extremely low. And that allows the developer to be able to put more debt on the property and to carry more debt so that the gap is smaller. But because they have to have other rents at the various levels, it's not enough to be able to, unless you're charging market rate and workforce and market rate are very close in terms of the rents, the gap is going to be larger when you're looking at affordability because you're only collecting so much revenue to be able to support the debt. So that's why you have the gap. And the Housing Authority vouchers allow the developer to have a guarantee for whatever that rent is. So that was the first thing I wanted to share. The other project is the Isaiah Clark apartments. They will have vouchers on them. They said I could share that information, and so that's why I'm doing so.
Okay. Okay. I was like-
And so it's not, we're not just sitting on the vouchers, the excess vouchers, and we do make them available. Developers know they're very well aware that there are project-based vouchers at the various housing authorities, and they can submit applications and make requests. And there are requirements and policies by which they understand, and there's certain circumstances where if they partner with us as co-developers, for example, we don't necessarily have to do a competition or go through a competitive process. But because we are looking at how do we expand the amount of affordable units throughout the county, some of those project-based vouchers would need to be used as we make expansion of our public housing communities, because with our public housing communities, we also have a cap in terms of how many units we can build or how many units we can have, and that's another authority, the Faircloth Authority. However, we may need to utilize some of those project-based vouchers to be able to increase the number of units. We don't get to apply every year to have more project-based vouchers, and that was the thing I'm not sure if you understood or not. Yeah.
I got that. I appreciate it.
Thank you very
But it still goes back, and if the question is, if on your side, is that you don't want to take units that would be affordable away because of somebody getting a voucher, but if you use them to put them into market rate projects and build 3 or 4 or 5 in every one of them, now you're actually increasing your supply of affordable units. It's not going to move with the family. Understand that the choice is gone, but at least there are affordable units that are new on the market that can be made available to you. So that's my point on that. And I know my colleagues have questions, and I don't want to tie this all up, but I would be really interested in understanding what the mean and the average time people are receiving vouchers for, how many, and the same thing for people living in public housing units. What does that look like? How do they transition? What percentage transitions? When you talk about how many people you're serving, is by vouchers? Is that count the household, or is that the number of people living in the household? And then lastly, and you answered this on the determination of the number of vouchers that a community or housing authority receives. So,
Commissioner, if I could provide a little bit of clarification.
What are you doing? And this is the second time I'm interrupting you. Ms. Baker like to say something?
No, Taby's probably going to answer the question. I just wanted to point out that the 300 units that you talked about are available today. The projects that we have pending coming back before the board will tap those 300 units. And so you'll have even less than that.
Correct.
And when we talk about the projects that we bring online, the BCC approves, I hear you loud and clear, Commissioner. I'd like to also require it, but the developer has to agree that they want these type units in, and they have to have a maximum rent.
we give them additional density.
I agree.
We change land use, and we give them stuff, and
I'm-
don't ask for.
We could ask if that's the board's
We should be asking for
direction.
this, and if we had these vouchers
Okay.
available, we could be asking for this.
We
But we
will-
don't, because we didn't even know it existed.
We now know,
Now we
and
know.
we'll work with them. We'll work with
I
them.
want to see people get houses quickly. Everybody up here, all of you do.
Yeah, we do. We're very, so we'll work with the housing authorities. We'll also work with our developers, but the maximum rent has to be a certain amount because they won't go up to the 121 or 140%. They won't go that far up because the maximum they can pay is the difference. And so we'll continue to work with them. I hear you loud and clear, and this is another avenue for us to work with developers. And then we'll be able to tell you whether developers are willing to work with them or not as you're going through the deliberation process.
And that was one of our asks, give preference to developers that work with housing authorities. That was one of the asks that we had, because we do try to partner with private developers and place vouchers in those communities. But they have to want those vouchers, and it has to be amenable to us. We have a finite authority. Once my 300 is gone, I don't have any more to project base, ever.
Go ahead, Greg. Go ahead.
So does anyone know what the total in the entire county is?
The total that have been project-based?
No, that we have available in the county.
Oh, we can get that information, because some housing authorities, their cap is almost reached, or they may not have any more.
And that was part of the clarification that I wanted to give, is many of the projects that we brought forward to you under either the HIP program, the Housing Initiative Program, or under the bond allocation did have project-based vouchers, either from the Palm Beach County Housing Authority or from several of the other housing authorities that are here. So those have got that contingent project base pending, that those projects go forward and we're able to fund those. So those have already been allocated. And as Ms. Baker said, we have to get the developers' cooperation. Certainly, if the board set a policy regarding the having project or looking to project-based vouchers or having preferences in those that are getting additional density or additional dollars, we could have those requirements. However, for the vast majority of projects that are being built at market rate, they're just being built at market rate, and they can choose whether or not they want to allocate. If they're getting additional preferences, yes. Right. And that was part of the reason, I think that the board wanted this workshop to be able to give us direction. And even when we do the next RFP under the bond allocation, we can take some of these things into consideration and build preferences into that next RFP when we are soliciting more projects.
Okay, very good. Commissioner Bernard, you're recognized. Commissioner Bernard, you're the county commissioner on our housing commission anyway, so it'd be very good to hear from you at this point. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Service.
I'm trying to understand the question that Commissioner Weiss is asking. So I want to understand, why would a developer want to put 5 units as project-based voucher versus having it being not a tenant-based voucher? What would be the difference for
They could
that?
do both. Within a community, there are times when you've project-based vouchers, but they're still accepting tenant-based vouchers. So there's nothing to preclude them from doing that. The only thing with the project-based vouchers is it's guaranteed rental income that you can write into your pro forma, that you can bank on, and then you can put it in when you go to get financing. Because we're saying, typically, we just did one, we're going to sign a HAP contract for 20 years. We said that's $28 million that we will put into that project over the 20-year term that we're subsidizing 93 project-based units.
But would a housing authority give 5 or 10 units of a project-based voucher and still not be a partner with the developer?
I mean, housing authorities have project in properties where they're not a partner, but we don't have to do it competitively if we are a partner.
No,
it has to go through a competitive solicitation if we're not a partner.
Okay. And so, but when you project-based the developments, are you being partners in most of these deals, or are you just letting it be as a project-based voucher without any type of formal partnership with the developer?
Typically, it's a formal partnership, and we're signing a HAP contract, a housing assistance payment contract. And like I said, that can be a minimum of 1 to 20 years. So there's a formal partnership.
Okay. I guess, what's the future of housing authorities? Where do you see, we're dealing with a crisis in terms of housing, and where do you see the housing authority going in the future? And the reason why I'm asking that is, I know a lot of us, in the past, what we saw in terms of housing authorities were, developments that didn't get rehab, and, where there were eyesores in a lot of communities. Where do you see the housing authorities in the future in terms of addressing this issue?
I see the housing authorities kind of sitting where I am sitting today, talking about the economic impact that they make in the areas that they serve, diversifying their portfolio so that they can serve more families. We are not going to be able to only serve those families at 30 and 50% and continue to provide an increased portfolio. So that's why we talked about mixed financing. We have to have some market rate. We have to have, some workforce, and we have to mix that within a community, because a community of just affordable housing is not financially sustainable. And so that's where housing authorities are moving. They're moving to diversify their portfolios. They're moving to become their own developers and to develop communities utilizing their leverage with their vouchers and with their funding sources. And so that's where housing authorities are going. We're saying, hey, we're at the table. We want to develop. That's why we're saying we need land. Give us land that we can develop housing. I went to Columbus Housing Authority just recently, and they talked about how they were going in the red just trying to offer their affordable housing. Now they have market and retail, and they were like, in doing that, when they own market properties, they're able to make sure that 10% of those units go to vouchers, 20% of those units remain affordable. And that's how they place affordable units within their market rate communities. If we're developing our own market units, we don't have to ask for you to accept our vouchers. We put them in there ourselves.
Okay.
So that's where I see housing authorities going. Anybody want to chime in? Okay.
So just
I got
want
their
to
program.
follow up. You had mentioned the RAD program. Give me a little bit more information about that, and how successful is the RAD program going?
The RAD program, we have not done any RAD deals at the Palm Beach County Housing Authority. And I know that some housing authorities, the RAD deal was a good program, the Rental Assistance Demonstration Program. But I know for some, the RAD rents are not keeping up with the rents that are needed. And RAD was promised to be a net neutral program. All they're doing is combining your public housing operating subsidy and your capital subsidy, and they're transferring it to a voucher platform. You're not getting additional subsidy. It's the same subsidy you were getting under the public housing program. So for some people that has worked well, for others not so much. There are some changes that are coming to the RAD program to try to address the rents, but the rents are not keeping up under the original RAD program.
Okay. Follow up, Madam Mayor.
Go right ahead, sir.
You said that 30%, you can pretty much project base about 30% of your units. Would you want to have the ability to increase your ability to project base more units?
You can't. By regulation, you can only project base 30%.
I know, but what if, would it be better?
I asked when I was at a HUD convention because I have people that I've issued a voucher and they've searched for 10 months and they can't find a unit. So I'm like, if I had a set unit that they could go to, but they don't want to limit the choice portion of the program. We want families to have a choice in where they live. So if they want to rent a single family home, they can. When we project base it, that assistance is tied to that unit. And so HUD is kind of tied to, do we call it a choice program if we're limiting the amount of choice? But I know in this tight rental market, I would look to project-based, and HUD has made some changes through the Housing Opportunity through Modernization Act, where it's allowing housing authorities to increase that cap somewhat, and they're not counting units that were formerly assisted by low-income housing tax credits. Foster youth initiative vouchers can be project-based and not go against your cap. So we're looking at how do we project-base more vouchers to assist more families within the regulation.
I know for me, that's something that I'd love for us to, work with our federal counterparts, is to figure out ways that we can increase the percentage that we can project base those units. And now let me ask you another question in regards to the 10% that are the special population. Do we have any more abilities to continue to increase to that 10%, especially veteran vouchers? That's something that I'm concerned about. Can we create more veteran opportunities through VetVash?
Well, the HUD just put out a registration of interest for housing authorities that wanted to apply for additional VASH vouchers, but they base it on the need for your locality. If there's not a need, or if you already have vouchers that are serving the need, then they won't allocate anymore. And you have to get a letter of support from the VA hospital. So every housing authority would have to have that letter of support to even apply. But typically HUD puts out a registration of interest annually for VASH vouchers, for mainstream vouchers, for those special purpose vouchers.
And do we have the need for Palm Beach County?
I'm gonna let Ms. Gallagher speak to this.
The portion of the presentation we haven't gotten to yet is the VASH vouchers, and we have Karen Abbott and Meg Gallagher here. If you want us to go forward and do that portion.
Let's not do that. So I think we have other questions, Madam Mayor, so I'll stop.
But we do have that portion to, after these questions for the public housing authorities, to go over the VASH vouchers.
We need to do that. Okay, very good. Thank you, Commissioner Bernard. We're going to have Commissioner Woodward and then Commissioner Baxter.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. And a lot of discussion. I think my first question, you mentioned that you have a max on the vouchers based on zip code. So it's not a countywide.
No.
And is that just determined by where the unit is?
We are what's called a small area fair market rent. We have to set the payment standards by zip code. Most housing authorities in Palm Beach County, because of the high market rental rates, are required to be, we're mandated small area fair market rent. So right now, I think at last count, we had 79 different payment standards because they're set by zip code.
Okay, so what is the max in the county?
What is the max? It's determined by that zip code. It could be, for Wellington, it could be 5,000. For Riviera Beach, it might be 4,000. So
the
it's
vouchers
set.
don't actually have when we receive the voucher, we get a number of vouchers, not a dollar amount. Like, sometimes it's a combination. You get this much money for this much vouchers.
Well, there is. You get a voucher authority and you get a budget authority. You cannot exceed either one. So even though I may have the authority for 3,500 vouchers, if my per unit costs are running higher, I can't exceed my budget authority for the number of vouchers. So HUD caps me at, they may say you have a $31 million housing choice voucher program. If you can only lease 2,400 vouchers and get to 31 million, then you can only do 2,100. But if I can do 3,400 at 31 million, then I can do 3,400. So it's a delicate balancing act, vouchers versus budget.
Now, is that on tenant-based or both vouchers, project-based as well?
Tenant-based and project-based, it all comes from one pot. We don't get additional project-based. If I say I have 3,400 vouchers, that includes any project-based and any tenant-based.
So the project-based vouchers that you do, and you could do 1 to 20 years, you set a dollar amount on those. What is that based on? Is it based on market?
It's the contract rent that's asked for when you sign the HAP contract. And that could be the market rent at that time for that unit, but it would change. They can ask for a rent increase annually based on the market.
And if they ask for the rent increase, then that increases your voucher?
That increases the cost of the voucher.
Cost
If
of
it's
the voucher.
reasonable and it's within the payment standard, yes, it can increase the cost of the
So
voucher.
if it goes above that, you remove the voucher?
No. It just can't go above that. I mean, we're going to pay a maximum amount of subsidy. So you can't come and say, I want $7,000, and we say the max is $5,000. If it goes above that, then they have to negotiate. We negotiate that it has to stay within the payment standard. And most people where we project-based vouchers understand that there's a maximum. Right now, we're at 120% of the fair market rent. I would say most housing authorities in this area are at serving, the payment standard is at 120% of the fair market rent because the rents are so high. And we had to, I know our agency had to request a waiver to go to 120%. Typically, you can only go up to 110%.
Okay, so if they, do you put the time limit on there, like the 1 to 20 years from the very beginning? Is
Yes,
that
we
an
sign a
agreement?
HAP contract, we can extend it. It can be extended. And typically, before that 20 years is up, we'll enter into another HAP contract for up to another 20 years. So that's why I said it's not like we put them there and we're going to take them away. In my experience, it's very rare that you remove the subsidy once you place it on that development.
Now, that unit, if you have a project-based voucher, is it deed restricted as far as how, because when we do a workforce or an affordable unit, it's a deed restricted unit. Is it a similar process for a voucher, on a project-based voucher?
I don't know of a deed restriction on it. There's a I mean,
How is the compliance monitored?
HUD monitors it. The housing authority is monitored to make sure that it's within the regulations of the voucher program, because it's considered a regular voucher.
Okay, but it's not a deed restricted. They just know that.
They just know.
I'm looking for, because sometimes
Yeah,
these units
I'm not-
don't stay.
Well, once we place it, it has to, when we do a HAP contract for 20 years, then that means the unit will stay a project-based voucher project for 20 years.
And HUD monitors who.
The
who
housing
moves it.
authority signs the HAP contract, so we're going to make sure that it stays a project-based voucher for 20 years.
And who decides the tenant?
The tenant can decide if they want to stay there in that unit, but the assistance is going to stay with the unit, no matter what the
No, I
tenant
mean,
does.
who, like, if it has to be someone who's income verified.
Yes.
Who's doing that part?
The housing authority's
The
doing
housing
that
authority
part.
does that?
Yes, we determine their eligibility, income, household composition, assets, all of that is done by the housing authority.
So, and any of these ones that you've done, do you have any that are market rate developers who have, done maybe the 20 units that's not already building it for a workforce or affordable housing development? It's a market unit or market rate development, and you're adding, like he was saying, we could add 10, 20 units to any
The
of
Palm Beach
these.
County Housing Authority does not have any.
Does anybody, do you know, or any of the others?
I want to say West Palm with Pulte.
Do you have any
Would
market
you-
rate
no,
developments?
Wait, no, we're not going to do this like this.
Okay.
If there's someone here who is qualified to speak, come forward, fill out a card after you speak, but come up and identify yourself. Is there anybody here who wishes, and I'm looking at you, Tammy, is there anybody here that you would like to come and contribute to the discussion?
I'm thinking that West Palm Beach Housing Authority, if they have any, they may want to come on up. And
Is there somebody here from the West Palm Beach Housing Authority who wishes to speak?
Just to clarify my question, it was, do you have any project-based vouchers that you've partnered with a market rate builder and you are providing the vouchers for their market units to be part of the affordable units? But other than that, the rest of the complex is market rate?
Yeah, we've had developers we partner with, and we put, it's subsidized with some vouchers to the development itself. So yes, there does exist vouchers with mixed use, different income brackets.
Because I think that's what you were asking for, is to have the market rate builders have some of this. Because my concern is, and it was from the beginning, if we're using the vouchers to lower affordable housing even more, we're losing that affordable unit that maybe isn't affordable for 80%. If we're using vouchers to lower it from 80 to 30, we're kind of
And that's all dependent on the developer themselves. If that's what they want, they'll put it in the pro forma and decide whether or not this is profitable for them.
That's on a project base, right?
Yeah, whether or not project base will be profitable for their development. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not, and they have to limit it to a certain amount of vouchers as opposed to more or less.
And we do, I misspoke, we do have one development where they have some market units, we have some units that they accept a tenant-based voucher, and then there's some where we project-based 116 project-based vouchers in that community. And it's a total of 144 units.
Okay, so there's.
So we do have, we have quite a few of those, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just state your name for the record.
I'm Linda Odom.
From?
West Palm Beach Housing Authority.
Very good, thank you.
And if I could, just my last question.
Go right ahead, Commissioner.
With the tenant-based vouchers, is that just where the person qualifies to receive the voucher, and then they go find their unit, wherever it is, and then the voucher goes with them?
Correct.
What happens when they leave Palm Beach County?
The voucher ports, it's called portability. They can port it to another jurisdiction. And that jurisdiction can either absorb the voucher, which then it would free up the voucher in our jurisdiction, or we can bill them. We will bill them for the subsidy to pay for that person to live in their jurisdiction.
So do we get the voucher back for another person in Palm Beach County?
Not if we're billing. If we're billing, that voucher continues to be in our voucher authority. We're just billing the other housing authority for the subsidy. If they absorb it, then we no longer pay for that voucher, and that frees that voucher up in our jurisdiction. That's part of the choice. They can move it across the country.
Because this is a federal program.
It's a federal
It goes
program.
nationwide. Okay, how? And we have no way of getting those back unless wherever they move to absorbs it into one of theirs. But if they're
Correct.
using all of their vouchers, they may not even be able to
Correct.
absorb it.
Correct.
How many have we lost this way? Do we know?
We have currently, hover around 150
That
that
we're
are
billing
porting
for?
out. Yes,
And we are billing for those?
yes.
But we're
I
not
haven't
getting-
absorbed
But the
them.
units aren't here, they're somewhere else.
No, they may be in North Carolina, they may be in Atlanta, but we're billing that agency for that tenant that has our voucher in their jurisdiction.
And that can just go on for as long as, forever?
As long as, or they could decide to port, a lot of times they port and move somewhere else.
Okay.
That's the choice portion of the program. It's their choice where they want to live.
So when you give someone a voucher, they are a resident at the time of
Yes,
Palm
they
Beach
have to
County.
live here. Most housing authorities have the stipulation that they have to reside in that jurisdiction for at least a year before they can port.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. Commissioner Baxter, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the presentation. And Commissioner Woodward, because she asked most of my questions.
Okay.
So a couple of follow-ups, and just so I'm understanding this, so HUD actually designates how many vouchers you get?
Yes.
And so the only way you would get more, because you have a finite amount, is if they chose to give you more?
Or we applied for more.
Or you
yes.
apply for more?
Correct.
Otherwise, you're stuck one number, that's it?
Correct.
Good. Now, a couple questions. So what is the process? So let's say a market rate developer did want to do a project base. Like, how difficult or easy is that project or process for them?
I wouldn't say it's difficult. It's responding to the RFP, and we have to do follow our procurement guidelines on how we procure this particular developer to do business with. We go through the procurement process. We vet all the people that applied, and we decide which project, and then we sign the AHAP, which is the contract when they're in construction. And then once we're committing vouchers to this project, and then when the project is done, then we sign a HAP contract that guarantees the assistance for the 1 to 20 years.
How long would you say your procurement process takes?
Mine is probably difficult, yeah. It's a lengthy process. We have regulations that we have to follow. We have to look at, Section 3. We have to look at, are they a minority-owned contract? We have to look at their experience. We have to vet their references. So it's a project. We have to put out the solicitation form on average 30 to 45 days. Then we get all the respondents back in. We have to convene a panel to review those. They may do presentations. They come in and they do a presentation. We have to view the presentations. So it could be, I would say, anywhere from a 90-day process.
90 days or more?
Or more.
And so when they go through this process, how many hours would you say roughly it takes for them to, working hours to get through your entire procurement process?
Working hours, I know they have to spend time putting their solicitation together, and usually, they have to provide us 3 to 5 copies, so we have enough copies. Working time, they're investing a substantial amount of time to go through the process.
So just to go through the process, the time, and then at the end, they're still not guaranteed the project? Vouchers.
Not guaranteed, correct.
So I just a hunch, I think that might be why market rate developers don't necessarily want to do that. Well, another lengthy process. So thank you for answering the questions.
Okay, any other questions or comments by members of the board? I have a couple of questions, just a few. We have to follow a HUD restrictions, and it seems like there's a lot of federal restrictions on availability, on portability, on whether somebody qualifies. But we put Palm Beach County money into these projects. At what point can we use Palm Beach County ordinances for the monies that we put into these projects?
If I'm understanding the question, you're asking, can we layer our Palm Beach County requirements upon projects that already have federal funding?
No. This is the question, and it may be just a policy question, so you may not be able to answer it right away. We put Palm Beach County money into these projects. However, HUD puts their restrictions on all of what the work that you do, and it makes it very difficult. Why can't we have our own housing authority, which we do, but under our own auspices and authority as to how we want to use Palm Beach County money? And that may be a policy question. I hesitate to put our money into HUD's bucket where they're determining where the money goes, how it's spent, all these other restrictions. But that's the reality, isn't it, Tammy?
It is the reality. To make projects feasible is it usually does take stacking of many different funding sources, both local, state, federal level, as well as the developers putting in their investment. So that stacking in order to make a project feasible means that every jurisdiction, every funder that is putting in a contribution will have their own restrictions. And that can be cumbersome at times. And I think that was part of the discussion when we brought forward the bond recommendations, because some of the projects wanted to operate at one level because they had federal funding involved in how that would work with our funding. But certainly the Board of County Commissioners has the ability to put in whatever restrictions you deem appropriate. It just will be a matter of whether or not the developers will find it feasible to use our source of funding if they have other restrictions that might be more burdensome or less burdensome, and we're putting in more burdensome restrictions.
I can't imagine anybody having more restrictions than the federal government. It's really odd. You guys are operating under some very tight, restrictions. I know, Ms. Baker, you want to say something, but it just seems to me that we have a crisis in our hands with housing for homeless and for our most vulnerable. And we are operating under a very restrictive mode of being able to provide affordable housing for our people. And maybe we can find a different way. And also another thing, and I'll call you in just a minute, Ms. Baker, but the issues of these 39 cities, and I spoke to so many mayors about this, and I'm just curious, and you may not be able to, this is probably more of a statement than a question, Ms. Field, but the municipal 7 housing authorities have the right to determine availability and eligibility in their cities for these projects. Now, we have 7. We have 39 cities, okay? The VA, I know it's its own entity there, but I believe it's in the city of Riviera Beach. But then we have Mangonia Park. Mangonia Park does not have a public housing authority, and yet we're building in Mangonia Park. So I think that we got some work to do here, because this is a big issue with housing for our homeless, and it's become even bigger since the Supreme Court decision. So we've got some work to do. I'll call in just a minute. Ms. Ms. Baker.
As we all know, there's a pecking order when funding comes in. The feds' rules dictate, then the state rules dictate, and then our local rules dictate. So they supersede us. However, I think we had 1 or 2 projects where we didn't have the additional subsidy when we came to you with the bond thing. It was the developer dollars in and then our bonding dollars. So we get to set the rules in those particular cases. But in the majority, if not almost all of our housing programs, federal dollars come into play, and we have to acquiesce to the feds and the state.
I know that there is federal funding available through our congressional delegation.
Correct.
And I'm going to make a statement now that if we can get funding through our congressional delegation with grants, I will try my best to work with the county to do it, so that we don't have these HUD restrictions that's making it. You all want to build housing.
We do.
You want to house our people. But it is so damn difficult with all these restrictions, and only 7 municipals have housing authorities. So you're working with a broken system, and I'm not saying the federal government's broken, but maybe I am. Maybe I am. What I'm saying is that Palm Beach County money and grants from our congressional delegation, and there's a lot, and we'll discuss that at another public hearing, that we can maybe make it easier and quicker to build housing for our homeless. And I know that you work so hard on all of this, and we will work together. Commissioner Weiss?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to follow up on Mayor Sachs's questions on regarding multiple housing authorities. And can you explain is there any benefit, or what the benefits would be of every municipality establish their own housing authority?
I don't know that there would be any benefit because you have multiple housing authorities here that serve the entire county. I mean, we provide vouchers throughout the county. West Palm Beach Housing Authority provides vouchers through a large portion of the county. So even for those municipalities that don't have a housing authority, they're being served by the other housing authorities. Their residents and people are living. All that would do is create another agency for HUD to fund. HUD typically has not been in the business of creating new housing authorities, but because there's 3,000 of them already. But I don't know that, like, I have residents that Boynton Beach does not have a housing authority, but we serve Boynton Beach residents. So they're served not by just me, but by other housing authorities in this area.
But is there funding, when you establish a housing authority, does funding come along with it from the federal government?
I think there's limited funding in the HUD budget. It's just going to siphon off funding from another agency to fund another housing authority. I don't think it's going to increase the funding or increase the number of vouchers.
Would it increase the funding, vouchers, or anything by having additional housing authorities?
I don't believe so. HUD has a limited budget. They're going to allocate so much per state, and that
So we're just going to take the pie and cut it up?
We're going to slice it six more ways.
And have potentially more administrations, more costs.
Correct.
Just doing all the same thing.
Correct.
Any thought about taking all the housing authorities and putting them together then?
There are some housing authorities that have formed like consortias, and they've, where there's smaller housing authorities. You have some housing authorities that are very small that join, or even if they don't join, they're operated by a larger housing authority. They're administered by a larger housing authority. So that's a possibility, and some housing authorities have done that.
Okay.
But I would like to close with one comment. I think, yes, we may have a difficult procurement process, but one thing that housing authorities can say is we bring guaranteed revenue to a deal for 20 years. So I think if you're going to get $28 million over 20 years, that makes the process a little worth doing. Plus, we also are going to serve those families that might not be served. And so, yes, we have regulations and restrictions that we have to go by, but we also bring to the table that we bring you guaranteed rental income, and we bring you a guaranteed wait list of applicants. I have a 16,000 person wait list.
Oh.
So
how 16,000?
16,000 person wait list. I think if you look, and that I opened that in June of 2022. We closed it in December of 2022. We bring you guaranteed applicants, guaranteed revenue, guaranteed subsidy for 20 years. That's what we bring to the table.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. You do amazing work. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
If we could now transition to the Veterans Administration and the VASH voucher program, and we have Ms. Gallagher and Ms. Abbott to go over that. Do you want the clicker, or do you want me to do it for you? Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Mayor, for giving us the opportunity to give you some information on our program. So we're going to define to you what the VA homeless program means. We're going to tell you about our Healthcare for Homeless Veterans program, which is our initial program, veterans coming in off the street, and then our HUD-VASH program. We start out with the homeless veterans program, which Ms. Abbott is the section chief for. These are veterans that are coming right off the street.
Speak a little louder.
These are veterans coming right off
there you go.
the street, identifying themselves as homeless. We have a Veterans Resource Center at the VA where they can come in, they can take showers, they can do their laundry, they can get food, they can meet with our staff there to identify community resources that would be able to help them immediately. As part of that program, we have what we call our contracted residential treatment program, where we contract with agencies in the community to house the veteran for a very short period of time until we can get them into stable housing. The central goal for our program is to reduce homelessness among veterans by conducting outreach to those who are the most vulnerable and not currently receiving services to engage them in treatment and rehabilitative programs. So within our homeless veterans program, we have our Veterans Resource Center, which I already mentioned. We also have our Veterans Justice Outreach. So we have clinical social workers going into our jails and prisons every day to meet with the veterans that are currently there to see how, when they come out, we can assist them and they're not homeless when they come out. We also have our Grant Per Diem program, where the community housing providers will agree to house our veterans for up to 2 years to get them stabilized. This could be, versus our contract, this Grant Per Diem can give them the opportunity to say, become mentally stable if that is what's keeping them from maintaining their housing. It could be helping them to address their substance abuse issues. It could be veterans that are in domestic violence situations that need someplace to go. Then we also have our employment services. So the veterans that are not working for whatever reason, we have a team of employment staff that are working with them. Some of them we employ at the VA, some of them we employ out in the community to get them the income to be able to maintain that stable housing. Okay, once they have entered that Healthcare for Homeless Veterans program, they're going to be referred to HUD-VASH, which is the program that I run. HUD-VASH is the collaborative program that pairs with HUD's Housing Choice Voucher rental assistance with VA case management and supportive services. Together, this helps homeless veterans and their families obtain permanent housing and access health care to help them improve their quality of life and maintain their housing. So basically, the benefit of our HUD-VASH program is that we have a case manager that is seeing them on a regular basis. Make sure they have their bills paid. Make sure they have food in the home. Make sure they're keeping their house clean, that they're providing or following the guidelines of their landlord's requirements under their lease. The eligibility for our HUD-VASH program is simple. They need to be a veteran. So about 2 years ago, I think it was, the guideline was changed. It used to be they had to be eligible for VA health care. But about 2 years ago, they changed that, and now all they have to be is a veteran that is not dishonorably discharged. Okay? So the current guidelines for health care is they have to have served a certain amount of time. So those veterans that were there for a very short period of time weren't eligible for, but we now have the opportunity to house them. They have to be homeless, either residing in a place not meant for human habitation, in a safe haven, emergency shelter, etc. The guidelines also state that they should be homeless for 12 months or more, or have at least 4 separate episodes of homelessness in the past 3 years. So those are all things that we have to screen for. Needs to know about our HUD-VASH program is that they can bring a spouse and children with them on that voucher. The income does have to fall within our HUD guidelines. And then they have to choose housing within the geographical areas that our VASH vouchers cover. Okay, you can see from the next slide, these are the different housing authorities that we work with and the number of vouchers that they have. West Palm Beach Housing Authority has the vast majority of our vouchers, but we do have vouchers in almost every county in the area, every city in the area. As she said, if the specific housing authority does not have vouchers, then they can use vouchers from other areas to be housed. So we have a total count of 672 vouchers for this VA healthcare system. But again, we can't do this alone. We have a collaborative effort with the VA and the community partners, which gives us a greater potential for functional outcomes that will help veterans to be successful in independent living. We work with our housing authorities. A big program also is what we call Supportive Services for Veterans and Families. That is a federally funded program, but not run under the guidance of the VA system. It's under their local agency who has been awarded that program. We also work with our veterans organizations and our community agencies. So what do we need? We need more affordable housing. Our veterans are coming in, and as she said, she had one veteran 10 months. We've seen the same thing. A lot of them will select a unit, but then it won't pass the inspection processes, and so they have to start all over and find another unit. Veterans, can make their own choice. I don't want to live in this area, which sometimes we can't blame them. We might not want to live in that area either. Barriers to their issues are, a lot of them have background issues. They need legal assistance for evictions that they have in the past, poor credit, aging needs. The VA now has a Aging and Disabled Veterans Initiative, as we're seeing the age of our veterans increasing. Financially, they need help with deposits. SSVF does cover a lot of that, but some of them have used that in the past 2 years, so they're not eligible for it again. So if something were to happen, say they went to jail, they come back out, they don't have that assistance to get deposits to get back into a unit. Moving costs. They may have stuff in storage and literally have no way of getting it to the unit. So we have found a couple of moving companies that are willing to do pro bono work and help with that, but we need more assistance in that area. And then assistance in applying for whatever financial benefits. I mean, we have people coming to us that have never applied for their VA disability, their Social Security retirement income even. They're 67 and they've never applied for it. Number one, it may just be too overwhelming. They didn't have somebody to walk them through that system, so we need more people to help with that. Transportation to get around, look for housing. Nutrition and food. Once they're in the housing, do they have access to that? Our employment. And then for the working families, they need daycare options. So those are the big things that we see. Some things that we're coming up with right now, especially for our aging population, which I said again is a big push right now through the VA, is that we can now use our vouchers in assisted living facilities. The key to that is finding assisted living facilities that will accept the vouchers because of the income guidelines. And then shared housing options. A lot of people don't want to go into shared housing options. They want their own unit. But that is an option. If we have veterans that have zero income or very limited income, that is an option that we can place them into shared housing. That's brief and to the point. We didn't want to overwhelm y'all.
Appreciate it. Commissioner Bernard, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Thanks for the presentation regarding the vouchers. On slide 8, you have like 672 total voucher count for the West Palm Beach VA healthcare system. Mm-hmm. How many vouchers do you have that are available for that you could, put out for veterans?
I knew you were going to ask that, and I have the numbers right here. So currently, we have 121 vouchers that are open. We have 112 people that we are currently working with, as well as 4 people who have asked to port to this area.
Okay. Thank you. Follow up, Madam Mayor?
Sure, go right ahead. It's the workshop.
And continuing on that slide, I'm looking at it seems like there's a relationship between the West Palm Beach Housing Authority with 451 VASH vouchers, and I'm looking at the Palm Beach County Housing Authority at 15. It would seem that, the County Housing Authority would get more VASH vouchers that could be spread out more throughout the county. So what's going on between the VA system and the Palm Beach County Housing Authority where you're not getting as many veteran vouchers to the Housing Authority?
So it has to meet the numbers of our PIC counts. So we can not request more vouchers if we can't show a need for it. I think our PIC counts, I have that here. This year, our PIC count showed veterans that self-reported homelessness, 70 that were sheltered and 36 that were unsheltered. And we currently have the majority of them on our list already that we're working with. So we have to be able to show that we need more vouchers in order to be able to give a letter of support to our housing authorities that we need vouchers in that area. And right now, we don't have that data to back
So
that up.
that's not within the Palm Beach County Housing Authority's area? Because I think they would cover almost.
We cover all the way up, like Fort Pierce and all the way down to Boca. So it's within all those areas.
Okay. Thank you very much. Another question is, you had brought up that, the VA's working on trying to do ALF housing for the vets. I guess my question is to the housing authorities, have you all started looking at using some of your vouchers for the seniors who are more seniors?
I think, yes, I think housing authorities are open to using the vouchers for anyone in need. I know I only have 15, but we are always looking at, do we get more allocated from another jurisdiction that's not using all of theirs? We've done requests to work with other housing authorities outside this area to transfer some of their vouchers to our area.
No, hold on, I think I'm talking about like the ALF population.
I have not personally looked at ALFs, but I wouldn't say I wouldn't be open to it.
Okay,
We've looked at the shared housing option.
Okay. Yeah, because I think that, we have a lot of seniors who are, want to be in their home or they're maybe in an ALF, have y'all created some rules in regards to how do you apply the vouchers in the ALF environment?
HUD creates the rules.
Okay, so HUD would
HUD will create the rules for us. But I'm sure if you now can use a voucher in the ALF, HUD has very strict, very explicit guidelines on what that looks like. Just like with the shared housing, they put a whole PIH notice out on how you do shared housing.
I think Ms. Odom. Sorry.
Yes, I just wanted to add to that.
Hold on just one second. Okay. I know it's a workshop, but Ms. Fields.
I was going to say, since West Palm Beach Housing Authority has the largest number, Ms. Odom's probably the best one to answer those questions.
Very good. Okay, now you're on.
Yes, we were approached by the VA to do a assisted living facility, use our vouchers there, and we have communicated that we are pretty much, very much in line with doing that. We're in the process of working that out. Our administrative plan does allow for us to use the vouchers in an assisted living facility, so that will not be too much of a problem.
And follow up, Madam Mayor.
You go right ahead.
So are you looking at eventually going the route of making it a project-based ALF? Would you do your own ALF? Or?
No. The VA runs the ALF.
Okay.
But we use our vouchers in the ALF. So, those individuals who need housing and that we have vouchers for would just use them in that particular ALF. So
VA does not run it.
Yeah, not run it, right. We use it there, not run it. Yeah, we would not be responsible.
But would the housing authority or eventually partner to create an ALF that could be more of a project-based ALF in the future? I'm just asking that.
Yeah, there are, the federal government has been very liberal in trying to help us to utilize project-based vouchers for veterans. They've been giving us a lot of leeway in making like a unit that a VASH voucher is being used in that can actually just turn into a project-based voucher. So as far as assisted living facilities, I'm not sure that takes us a particular expertise. So that would, of course, be something that we would have to work with the VA on as far as the work, a facility.
And I've been working with our visit office, which runs all the different VAs in Florida. There's not very many right now that are even had any success in getting somebody in. There's, a handful here or there. The big problem is the cost. And, we have to get them set up with additional funds if they're eligible through the VA called Aid and Attendance, which provides additional amount of money for them that can contribute towards the ALF costs. So that's the big issue right now where I've worked with a couple of different community agencies that help you find assisted livings, and their idea was to say, go to the ALF and say, hey, we can make these referrals to you that are going to be full priced, in your, offset of the veterans that you're going to take that you may not be getting your full cost for. So, but we have to find those ALFs that are willing to do that.
Yeah, I know for me, it's just like, it seems that I would love to see more of a project-based ALF, that you can create a whole ALF unit that once you have it as a project-based, then, that would be unique to Palm Beach County, that, our seniors or our vets could be able to live in place. So that's
HUD does allow you to project-base a VASH voucher.
So that would be
So
great.
you could do it.
Thank you.
Very good. All right. Commissioner Barnett?
Thank you, Mayor. Going in a slightly different direction with regards to the crisis among veterans taking their lives, and I think it's up to 24 a day. I'm not sure.
Sounds about right.
I was wondering if the creation of this program was developed because of the crisis among suicides among veterans, if that served as an impetus for the creation of this program, with the goal of creating an overall better quality of life for our veterans, in addition to the mental health issues that they have been dealing with, not just those who have served overseas, but those who are dealing with the ramifications back here at home. But I also wanted to talk about the quality of life for their families as well. I noticed on page 7, we discussed the first bullet point that this program was meant to serve veterans with spouses and dependent children. Is there any kind of provision in this program that will help the spouses or the children of fallen veterans?
So the voucher, if they are have a voucher and are in a unit with their family and the veteran passes away, the family is able to keep that voucher.
Okay.
So it still remains a used HUD-VASH voucher, but there's no longer a veteran living in that household. It's the family of the veteran.
Okay, perfect, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Woodward and then Commissioner Weiss.
Thank you, Mayor. So just so I understand the relationship with the housing authorities, when you have the different allocations here of the vouchers, do they become like the administrators the way they do with income-based vouchers?
I'm not sure I'm understanding.
We administer the VASH vouchers.
Right.
So if there's an allocation, we vet, we determine the eligibility. We get the referral from the VA, but we do the same steps that we would for any other voucher that we have.
Okay, just adding in, I guess, because there was a number of parameters where they have to have been homeless or whatever, you have to go by those guidelines?
Well, that's the
Well, we
referral.
go by that. So we will screen them and then refer them to the housing authority. The partnership comes in as their voucher that they have goes along with the conjunction of our case management. So the VA, the entire time the person is in a VASH voucher unit, the VA sends a case manager in based on, there's an acuity scale and it's based on the veteran's needs. So some of them are seen weekly, some of them are seen biweekly, some of them are seen monthly, some of them are seen every 3 months. It just depends on where they're at. But that is what keeps them stably housed, is that case management component.
So when you have, say, the Palm Beach County Housing Authority, you have 15 vouchers, you would get the referrals
From the VA.
from the VA for those units, and then you help
Issue
them
them.
find the units, or?
Well, between the VA and us, yes, we help them. We have someone that would assist them in locating units, or if we know of units, but the VA also would provide
We have
those
housing
services.
specialists that work
Yes.
specifically with
the VASH.
have landlords, and we know of units, but they don't have to go with what we know. A veteran can go out there and they can find somebody willing to lease to them, and as long as that person is willing to work with the housing authority and be approved by them to be a landlord, then they can use that unit. It doesn't have to be somebody we've already identified.
So then would those vouchers then be used the same way for like the zip code HUD
Yes.
numbers? Is that how that
Yes.
gets figured?
Yes.
Okay. And so if you were to do project-based vouchers, though, you have 15 for the county, would that reduce the 15?
Yes.
That number would come from that 15?
Yes.
Okay.
Unless I
And-
got an additional allocation.
Okay, and I guess to Commissioner Bernard's question with the, why there's 451 with West Palm and all the others are pretty evenly, is that?
It's where the need is, basically. The need is showed to be more in the area of West Palm Beach, and as you go out, you see less need.
So does the West Palm Beach Housing Authority, because it's the only one, I guess, up here, does their reach cover Riviera Beach and where the VA actually is, their authority? Okay, so proximity to the VA is the West Palm Beach Housing Authority. Okay.
Commissioner Weiss.
So I'm trying to understand this question about where they're at. So if they're homeless, couldn't they basically then say they want to live in any one of the housing authority's jurisdictions?
We usually will ask them, where's your preference? Do you want to live in West Palm Beach? Do you want to live in Fort Pierce? Do you want to live in Boca? And it's the veteran's choice where they go. And then we will say to them, well, we don't currently have a voucher open with that housing authority, but we might have one here. Doesn't mean that you can't live in the other areas. The voucher is from that area.
Okay, so to help me understand this better, so that it doesn't matter which housing authority has a voucher, as long as they're staying within Palm Beach and the Treasure Coast, they can live wherever they want.
Correct.
And so, because I was not understanding why West Palm Beach Housing Authority has so many more than the other housing authorities, other than...
It's what they applied for and what HUD awarded them. The VA itself doesn't have any say over that, other than to give letters of support that, yes, we would support them in getting more. But the ultimate decision on which housing authority gets those comes from HUD, not from either the PHAs or the VA itself.
Okay. And then in terms you said last, you had, you were talking about your point-in-time count and how many currently homeless veterans there were in the area. And so are you going to the federal government annually and asking for an allocation? Is that how it works based on the point-in-time count?
HUD puts out a registration of interest, and they invite housing authorities to apply for an additional allocation of VASH vouchers. And they usually do that annually. The one they put out, I think, is due August 20th. But it is going to be based on, is there a need for additional vouchers in your area? If we can establish that there's a need, they will not allocate additional VASH vouchers to your area.
And how's that need established?
They look at the point-in-time count. The number of homeless veterans not being served.
So in August, how many are we going to be applying for?
We're not applying for any more right now. We don't have any data to support that we need more.
Okay.
Again, that's just for veterans. These are veterans vouchers. These are not the rest of the
And
population.
these come on top of the other vouchers.
Correct.
Here was a question I had. Can I take a voucher if I have a person-based voucher? Can I take that to an affordable unit? Can I take that to a workforce unit as well?
You can take it to any landlord that will accept that voucher as long as the rent is reasonable and the unit meets the inspection standards.
So do we know if we're losing any of the subsidized units that we're building to folks that are also then having a voucher applied to that as well, so that we're actually losing units?
I don't know if we categorize it as losing units, but as we talked about with the bonds, our dollars will come in toward construction. The voucher dollars are going to come in toward revenue. So it's absolutely possible that we're going to be funding the construction part of affordable units that will then have voucher dollars to help subsidize the rent.
Is that a good policy?
That is something.
Or did you want to respond?
Yes. That is something that we need to look at very closely. We have not allowed workforce housing units to receive subsidies from other funding if we know those units are there. This is a new process that we're learning, as you learn, on the tenant-based. We don't want to over-subsidize the workforce housing because you've already given additional density to help offset that cost.
Given money as well.
Absolutely. And so the last thing we want is for our workforce affordable units that you've given to also be subsidized.
Nobody gets it once.
That's correct. So we will look into it. This board has allowed us not to double dip on other workforce units with additional subsidy from this board. But we don't control the units from the Housing Authority. We've learned a lot, and so we're going to continue to work with our Housing Authority so we can maximize the use of our dollars, our workforce housing incentives, along with their dollars as well. So we'll continue to work with them on those issues. But they are paying for two different things. We're paying for the capital side. Their vouchers, especially the tenant base, is paying for the operating.
Revenue side, yeah. Okay. All right. And then to Commissioner Bernard's point, the ALF project-based vouchers, I mean, seems like something we really should be looking at. We know that our homeless population we're seeing more seniors than we have in the past. Overall, the boomers are still the biggest bump sort of in the population, and so they're all pretty much seniors now. So the need for ALFs and the opportunity to go in and potentially partner in an ALF being constructed and putting a voucher in at least in some of the beds or rooms, so that people have a place to go, especially our veterans. It seems like, and although the VA hospital, you all have a wonderful program over there for housing senior vets as well, but to have more choice and be able to be in the community in different parts, to be closer to the friends and family would be good as well. So,
thank you, Commissioner. Ma'am, did you wish to speak to one of those issues? Go right ahead.
I think my point has gotten lost by this time. Initially, Commissioner wanted to know why those vouchers, the West Palm Beach Housing Authority had so many vouchers. And the reason was that when these vouchers became available, the West Palm Beach Housing Authority applied over and over again in the past, and we were assigned these vouchers. So, and that's the reason. And at the time, while the VA was making an assessment, there was a great need, and then we ended up getting most of the vouchers. So it wasn't anything, so that's how we were awarded all the vouchers. And the vouchers can be used anywhere within the county, so.
Thank you very much. Commissioner, Vice Mayor Marino, you're recognized.
Thank you. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for your presentation. How do our veterans actually find out that this program is available? I know you listed on page 9 public housing authorities and support, but You know, sometimes it's the hands-on, walking the streets approach, and because they may not know, and they may not know where to go for resources. So how do you tackle that?
So my counterpart, Karen Abbott, has outreach staff. Would you like to?
Thank you, Ms. Abbott.
Yes, hi. So I would like to say I was the second person hired in Hadvash. I've been in the program since 2009, and in the last couple of years, I moved over to be the homeless program section chief. So I can concur with West Palm Housing Authority. My understanding historically is they were the first housing authority to apply for vouchers to partner with us in VASH in 2008, I think. So, and I think they were the first housing authority to apply for more vouchers, and then eventually we were joined by other housing authorities, which we were happy to support. And they've been a great partner. All the housing authorities, we love Carol, have been great partners, so we're really appreciative of that. And then, to the question of how do veterans find out about us, we have, over the years, grown a lot. The initial voucher allocation, I believe, was 105. Now we have 672, I guess, so it's grown. And so have the supportive programs. So now we have a staff of 3 outreach social workers. One is primarily based in Palm Beach County, one primarily in the Treasure Coast, and they go out with the homeless outreach teams of the counties. They go out with different agencies, for example, St. Anne's in Palm Beach County, and the Lord's Place, and kind of have a dedicated spot there, maybe on Mondays every week, so that if the agency knows we have veterans that have shown up, and we're going to link them up with you and let them know to be here on Monday. They can also drop in at the VA. We have a Veterans Resource Center with 2 dedicated social workers there all the time. We get a lot of referrals internally. So if a veteran shows up in the ER, inpatient medical or psychiatric, the social workers do an assessment. If there's any issue with homelessness or housing insecurity, they're referred to our social workers. So those are some of the ways. And we have a lot of wonderful partners that we've been working with for a long time, like SSVF, the program that manages that is Faith, Hope, Love, and Charity. I'm sure a lot of you know about them. So we receive referrals from all over.
Thank you.
Yep.
We also get them from our homeless hotline.
Yes, that's right. We have a homeless hotline number, and so that, and those, we have cards out in the community and flyers that have like a barcode, and you can just scan it, and it can give you a list of numbers direct to social workers as well to the hotline, and that's routed right away that same day to our staff.
Well, since you have the opportunity, what is the homeless hotline number?
Oh my gosh. Hang on, I will give that to you.
Because, you know, some of the best ways to get information out is for us to put it on whatever forms of media we share. So if you could share that with us, that would be great.
And I also wanted to add that we, through the Senior and Veteran Services of Community Services Department, there's outreach under Ron Holcron, who is also a veteran and is administering that program within the county. And you did mention the emergency rooms through the mental health unit that Fire Rescue has. They also ask certain questions as far as veterans are concerned so that appropriate referrals can be made.
And with the advent of our new Veterans Commission that we have, how have these agencies interacted with each other?
The Veterans Administration has representation on that committee, so those organizations all are coordinating with each other now through that advisory board that the board has appointed.
Okay, and I look forward to getting that phone number so we can, yep, go ahead.
877
424
3838.
3838. So if a homeless veteran calls us, how is it going to be answered?
24/7.
Does it say homeless veterans hotline, or what's the person at the other end of the phone saying to them?
No, they don't work for us.
Let's call it.
It's a national,
It's a national hotline?
yeah, it's a
Okay.
national hotline, so, and then it routes to the local.
All right, I appreciate that.
We'll make sure that we add that on our community services page with homeless as well. I think it may already be on there, but if not, we'll ensure that that number is also added on there so veterans would know if they go to the community services homeless page first.
Thank you. And Mayor, if you don't mind, I have a couple more questions. With the resolving barriers where you said on page 10, background checks, poor credit, and also the inspection process, how can we make that better? I know that you said sometimes there's a delay because a veteran will put in and they'll fail the unit itself will fail the inspection process. How can we help you, or what information do you need? How do you break down those barriers?
Well, with the inspection process, the Housing Authority has to follow HUD standards. They have the INSPIRE standards, which are new for the voucher program and for the public housing program. And basically, they want to make sure that the unit meets uniform physical condition standards or housing quality standards, that we're not putting people in subpar housing. So we have the units inspected. The unit has to pass the inspection before we can pay any rental assistance toward that unit.
And when a veteran is looking for housing, do they know this information first? Do they know that there's a criteria?
Yes,
Okay,
we put everyone through a briefing that kind of tells them how the program operates. We give them the voucher and we tell them, when you search, it has to be inspected, and this is how you turn in your packet so that we can inspect the unit.
Okay. And what do you do about credit reports and bad credit and that kind of thing?
You have to find landlords that are willing to work with them.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Any other questions or comments?
And to just add to that, the Veterans Administration has participated with our Smart Landlord and outreach program so that they have been present when we are doing those Smart Landlord outreaches.
I want to thank you for doing what you have done for our veterans, because there's no better group that we need to honor and house and take care of than our United States veterans. And to the Vice Mayor's issues with regard to our Commission on Veteran Affairs, do you connect directly with our newly enacted Commission on Veteran Affairs? I'm sorry, I
That's
want
okay.
to say your last name. So
Gallagher, it's okay.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm going to be honest with you. I just recently relocated here from another VA, so Karen is going to be able to.
Karen, come on up again. Tell me your last name so I don't.
Abbott.
Miss Abbott. Okay, Miss Abbott, do you connect directly with the county's newly appointed Commission on Veteran Affairs?
Yes.
And who is it that you connect with on that commission?
Well, Greg, do you know?
I'll tell you what, by the end of the day, would you connect with our Vice Mayor and let her know who the connection is?
Sure.
And we also have a county VA office here in the South County, and you also connect with, who is it that you connect with there?
So I'd have to get that to you because it's our outreach team that goes, we go to a lot of different meetings, so yes. I will get that name for you.
Okay, the two names, because we have a county office as well. How many homeless veterans and our point of time do we have today? You may not know this, so does anybody here on the staff
Meg
know?
had pulled that, I think.
Yeah, I think she
James
said
knows.
7.
Dr. Green, come on up and tell us how many.
Good morning. James Green, Director of Community Services.
And you've done a great job. You know how many, in point of time, how many homeless folks we have. You also know how many homeless veterans we have.
Yeah, we have currently, as of June, our by name list, we have 128 homeless veterans. We have Campaign Zero, which is a group of service providers, including the VA and others, that come together to end veteran homelessness. There are 5 communities that have ended veteran homelessness in the state of Florida. We want to become the 6th. And so they presented to the Veterans Services Advisory Board last month on
Very
where
good.
we are in that effort as well.
Very good. Now, 128 homeless veterans. Do you know how many commit suicide every week? And this is to Commissioner Barnett, and I know he can hear me. He's just getting some water. How many of our veterans, and they may not have been homeless veterans, but how many commit suicide every month or every week?
I don't have that exact number. We do have a coalition that's led by the Veteran Affairs that meets on suicides and things of that nature, and I think the percentage is around 10% of veterans. But I don't have the exact number to give you, but I'll find out and provide that.
You could, and that was to Commissioner Barnett's request. What can we do? We have 128 veterans, 10% of our veterans. We have the second largest veteran population in the state of Florida. We have a major VA hospital in West Palm. What can we do to take care of these 128 veterans, if you know? Because we have all these vouchers. We have all this help. Okay, so we got the homeless veterans, we got a Village of Valor, we got a VA commission. We got more veterans organizations here that are wonderful. Now, how do we take care of these 128 veterans?
Yeah, that's
and I'm
a great,
asking you a question, you know,
Okay.
that is a tough one, Dr. Green, but.
Yeah, I just
Give
spent
us
a lengthy amount of time communicating with them during your mayor's forum, actually peeling back the layers on where we are with Campaign Zero and how we can
Appreciate it.
end veteran homelessness, or reach functional zero, rather. And I think, you know, along with some of the housing opportunities that we've been waiting on Faith, Hope, and Love to build that complex. I think that's going to make a huge dent in veteran homelessness here. If we can get a housing complex, I know it's not specifically for veterans, but we'll be able to have some level of preference there. So if we can get a unit like that online and combine that with some other efforts, we've had some discussions about doing a smart landlord campaign specifically for veterans. And so the last one that we did a recruitment event at the Lord's Place. It was very well attended. We had a couple of commissioners that did come out, and we were able to recruit new landlords. We think if we can approach it differently with a slant for veterans, that we could probably recruit more veterans to specifically work with us. And along with some other efforts, we're working closely with the housing authorities and others to do what we can to reach functional zero here in the county, and we'll keep you up to date with where we are with that.
Appreciate it very much. And Dr. Green, you've done, and the staff here has done so much to help our most vulnerable. Let me just say that I have a personal affiliation for veterans because of my dad, and I have contacted the VA in Washington. We have money coming, and my dream, and I'll say it publicly, is we have over 70 acres of land at the VA hospital. The VA is committed by law to house and take care of its veterans, period. And my dream is to see housing right on the VA property where they can get supportive services. Veterans like to talk to veterans. They don't like talking, but they like talking to veterans. So with your help, Dr. Green, and your help, Karen, we're going to make this happen so that no veteran should live under a bridge. No veteran should have to commit suicide. So we'll work together, and I appreciate it. I also appreciate the fact, and Ms. Baker, you're responsible, thank you for that, for having a dashboard. The county does, for having a dashboard helping local families find these affordable housing. So thank you, all of you, so much. And if there's no other questions or comments by this board?
Mayor, could I add one additional comment? This is going to the Commissioner's question regarding the mental health. One of the things that we're also aware of, and I know Mr. Holgren is working on it along with Representative Brian Mast, is having flexibility for our veterans to be able to to choose their own mental health therapists. And this is no disrespect at all to our local Veterans Administration, but currently there's restrictions on them being able to use their benefits to seek their own therapist, not necessarily through the VA. So that is an ongoing effort that is being led by Representative Mast.
Very good. He has put aside millions, and I almost want to say billions, but a lot, as well as the VA in Washington. So we're going to move forward on it, as well as our other congressional delegations, especially Congresswoman Lois Franco. Vice Mayor Marino is recognized.
Just for clarity, you said you had, if I'm not mistaken, you said you had 121 open vouchers? Do you have actual locations, or this is not location driven?
The voucher is the veteran, so they still have to find a location.
And turning that around, do you have an outreach program that goes out and finds landlords?
So we have 2 housing specialists that work within our program that are specifically integrated into it to work with landlords, work with realtors who might know landlords, etc.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor.
We have a card. Commissioner Weiss.
Mr. Richard Radcliffe.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Madam Mayor and Vice Mayor and Commissioners. Thank you for this opportunity. I thought I could help clarify some things. This has been very, very educational this morning. I don't think there's anybody that hasn't learned something today. But I wanted to clarify something that there was questions repeatedly about why don't cities have, why aren't there more housing authorities than a handful of cities? And I just wanted to put it in kind of a perspective. There's 39 municipalities in Palm Beach County that I work for. Out of that 39, probably half of them have less than 5,000 people. So they have limited staffs. They have, we go from cities with 159 people in Palm Beach County to over 100,000. Both are cities, but different staff levels. So obviously, when half of them are less than 5,000, there's limited staffing and priorities and things that they can do. That being said, I'm a league director. There are 16 in the state, and I don't know of anybody who has such a working relationship. There's 67 counties, and I think we have one of the greatest partnerships working in Palm Beach County here, maybe the best in the state. And part of it is that out of the 39 municipalities, you talk about spending ad valorem dollars. 70% of your ad valorem dollars have come from a municipality, not from the unincorporated, but from municipality. We don't flaunt that, but a lion's share of the money you're spending. But that being said, some of the smaller cities, that's why we like to have the partnerships, because we pay our fair share, we pay sometimes the lion's share. And we don't flout it, we don't do that, but we love the partnerships. And the partnerships of working together on all these things, especially with the housing projects and with vouchers. So we are always there and always looking for it. But I would maintain that we have probably the best working relationship. But expecting every city or more cities to have housing authorities may not be that realistically, but that doesn't mean that we're not involved, as you know, and we don't feel the obligation, like all of you do, to help deal with it.
Thank you so much for those comments, and thank you for helping so much with the First Mayor's Symposium. Appreciate it. You guys are great. Thank you. Anything else? No? Okay. Thank you. Very good. Thank you very much. And thank you to all your staff and the representatives from the housing authorities for being here today. Thank you.
Mayor, should
we are, no, I think we're going to just move right on.
I think we should break for lunch.
I think we are going to take a break. We're going to take a lunch break. And I'm going to look to Ms. Baker. For the rest of the program today, we have 2 other presentations. And approximately how long will they And I'm thinking about how long our break should be.
1:15.
I'd like to do see now it's, I'd like to do an hour and
1:30?
15 minutes.
1:30 seems to be.
1:30? How does 1:30 sound to you?
Sounds
Ms.
great to me if that
Okay, then
meets your
1:30.
needs.
We are adjourned or in recess till 1:30. Thank you
Perfect.
very much. Take care.